All right, let me talk to you like a friend for a second. Have you ever reached the end of the day completely exhausted, your head buzzing, your phone battery dead, your to-do list technically touched, but somehow your life hasn't moved forward at all? You were busy, all day. Messages, emails, tasks, notifications, you didn't stop once. And yet, nothing meaningful changed. If that sounds familiar, you're not lazy, you're not broken, and you're definitely not alone. But there is a reason this keeps happening, and once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it.
But before we continue the video, subscribe now if you want more videos that help you uplift your life and become the best version of yourself.
Here's the uncomfortable truth most people never talk about. Being busy and making progress are not the same thing. In fact, being busy is often the easiest way to avoid progress. Think about it. Being busy feels productive. It feels responsible. It gives you something to point to and say, look, I tried. But real progress, that's uncomfortable. It asks you to focus, to choose, to say no to a lot of things that feel urgent but don't actually matter. And that's where things start to fall apart. Most people wake up already reacting. They check their phone before they check in with themselves. They let other people's priorities hijack their attention. They move from task to task, conversation to conversation, problem to problem, without ever asking, is this actually moving my life forward? So the day fills up, the calendar fills up, the mind fills up, but the life stays the same. And the worst part is, the more busy you are, the less time you have to think about why nothing is changing. Busyness becomes a shield, a distraction, a comfort zone disguised as effort. I know this because I've lived it. There was a time when I was always tired but never fulfilled, always rushing but never arriving. I told myself I was working hard when really I was just avoiding the harder questions, like what I actually wanted, what I needed to stop doing, and what I was afraid to face if I slowed down. Because slowing down forces honesty. When you slow down, you notice patterns. You notice that some tasks keep you occupied but don't build anything. You notice that your energy is being spent maintaining life instead of upgrading it. You notice that a lot of your work is just reacting to other people's expectations, and that can be uncomfortable to admit. Here's something no one prepares you for. Progress almost always feels quieter than busyness. Progress doesn't always feel exciting. It doesn't flood you with dopamine. It doesn't give instant validation. Progress often looks like doing one important thing while ignoring 10 noisy ones. It looks like sitting with discomfort instead of numbing it with activity. It looks like choosing depth over speed. And our world is not designed for that. We live in a culture that rewards visible effort, not meaningful direction. If you look busy, you look important. If you respond fast, you look reliable. If your schedule is packed, people assume you're doing well. But none of that guarantees growth. So you end up with a life that feels full, but not fulfilled. Another reason you're always busy but never moving forward is because you're confusing motion with direction. Imagine running on a treadmill. You're sweating, your heart is racing, your legs are burning, but you're still in the same place. That's what most modern productivity looks like. You're answering messages but not building relationships. You're consuming content but not gaining clarity. You're checking tasks off lists that were never aligned with your long-term goals in the first place. And no one ever taught us how to tell the difference. From a young age, we're taught to stay occupied, to fill time, to stay productive. But no one sits us down and says, hey, before you do anything, you need to decide what actually matters. So we default to what's easiest, what's urgent, what's loud, what's right in front of us. Progress hides in quiet places, on the other hand. It hides in the uncomfortable conversation you keep postponing, in the habit you know you need to build but keep delaying, in the decision that might disappoint someone else but finally honors you. And those things don't scream for attention. They wait patiently while you stay busy. There's also an emotional side to this that people rarely talk about. Sometimes we stay busy because slowing down would force us to feel things we've been avoiding: uncertainty, fear, loneliness, doubt. Busyness gives us an excuse not to deal with them. As long as we're moving, we don't have to reflect. As long as we're occupied, we don't have to ask, is this life actually aligned with who I'm becoming? But growth requires reflection, and reflection requires space. You can't hear your own thoughts in a room full of noise. Another trap is that many people are busy trying to optimize a life they never consciously chose. They tweak routines, they download productivity apps, they watch motivational videos, but they never step back and ask the bigger question, am I even climbing the right mountain? You can become incredibly efficient at the wrong things. And that's one of the most dangerous forms of stagnation because it feels like progress from the inside. Let me tell you something important. Progress is not about doing more. It's about doing less, but better. It's about choosing one or two priorities that actually move the needle and giving them your best energy instead of your leftover energy. Most people do the opposite. They give their best hours to distractions and their worst hours to their dreams. They save what matters for later, not realizing that later keeps getting pushed back by today's busyness. If you take one thing from this so far, let it be this. Your calendar is not a measure of your growth. Your habits are. And habits are built in small, boring moments when no one is watching. Progress happens when you consistently show up for the things that don't feel urgent but matter deeply. When you protect time for thinking, when you allow boredom instead of escaping it with activity, when you choose intention over reaction. That's not glamorous, but it's powerful. And the moment you stop trying to look busy and start trying to live intentionally, everything begins to shift. You don't suddenly have more time, you have more clarity. And clarity changes how you move through the world. In the next part of this conversation, we'll talk about how to break out of the busy trap without blowing up your life, and how to start making real progress in a way that feels sustainable, human, and actually aligned with who you want to become. Because you don't need to work harder, you need to work truer. And once you do, busyness loses its grip, and progress finally has room to breathe. So let's keep going, because this part is where things start to click. Once you realize that busyness isn't the same as progress, the next question naturally becomes, okay, then what am I supposed to do differently? And I want to be honest with you here. This isn't about some dramatic overnight transformation. It's about a few quiet shifts that completely change how your days feel and where your life starts heading. One of the biggest reasons people stay stuck is because they never decide what progress actually means for them. They just assume it's obvious. More money, better habits, better relationships. But those are outcomes, not directions. Without a clear direction, your brain defaults to whatever feels urgent, and urgency is addictive. I had a phase where my days were packed. Meetings, messages, side projects, random favors for people, constant content consumption. If someone asked me how I was doing, I'd proudly say, busy. But if they asked what I was building, I didn't have a clear answer. I was maintaining everything and advancing nothing. That's when I realized something uncomfortable. I was busy because I never chose a main thing. When everything matters, nothing really does. Progress starts when you decide what deserves your best energy, not just your leftover time. Most people flip that. They give their best hours to whatever shouts the loudest, work emails, social media, other people's emergencies, and then try to squeeze their own goals into whatever scraps are left at night. And when they're too tired to do anything meaningful, they blame themselves for lacking discipline. But the problem was never discipline, it was priority. Here's something simple but powerful. If something truly matters to you, it deserves a place in your day when your mind is clear, not when you're exhausted, not when you're half distracted. Progress needs presence. Another trap that keeps people busy without moving forward is perfectionism disguised as preparation. This one is sneaky. It sounds responsible. You tell yourself you're getting ready. You research, you plan, you tweak, you wait for the right moment. But deep down, you're stalling. I've seen people spend months organizing their goals instead of taking one imperfect step towards them. They're busy refining systems instead of building skills. And because they're always working on it, they never feel like they're failing, just delayed. Real progress almost always starts messy. It starts before you feel ready. And that discomfort you feel when you're about to take action, that's not a sign to stop. That's usually a sign you're finally doing something that matters. So here's the part I really want you to remember. You don't need to overhaul your entire life. You don't need a perfect system, a new routine, or some magical burst of motivation. Progress doesn't come from doing more. It comes from doing less, but with intention. Just one clear priority, one block of focused time, one honest decision about what actually matters. That's it. If you can wake up tomorrow and ask yourself, what's the one thing I can do today that my future self would thank me for? You're already ahead of most people. Protect that thing. Give it your best energy. Let everything else be secondary. And don't wait until you feel ready. Readiness comes after action, not before it. You're not behind, you're not lazy. You're just busy in the wrong direction. And the moment you shift that direction, even slightly, everything starts to change. So take this as your sign. Slow down, choose on purpose, start small, but start today. If this hit home, take a second to reflect, then actually apply it right after this video ends. And if you want more conversations like this, more clarity, more progress, stick around. Your future isn't built by staying busy. It's built by moving forward.